thanks to the City of BRIMBANK across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on BRIMBANK Live on Live FM.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Soul Dive with Roshani, AD, and Lydia on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live. It is a beautiful morning, this Friday morning. Ladies, how are we, and how are we doing on, what is it, our third day of freedom in Melbourne?
Oh, yeah, true. I honestly
doesn't feel like it, hey?
Yeah.
I think everyone's just trying to keep their mental health in check, trying to get their sleep in order. It's been a bit of a tidal wave.
Yeah.
But it's getting warmer, and things are looking up as the sun comes out brighter and brighter every day.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Have you ladies kind of gone and done anything, like gone to a restaurant or kind of gone out and done something other than just stick within your 5Ks doing your grocery shopping?
Yeah, I went and got fish and chips. I mean, we didn't end up sitting in a restaurant or anything. We tried to, like Captain Baxter in St. Kilda, like there's like Republican. We tried, but then because they have limits, they're like, sorry, we're booked out. You have to actually book to go somewhere because of their limits. But I'm like, oh, next time.
Yeah, a lot of pre-planning and pre-booking, which we've had months of not doing that. So now I'm like, I've got to be on it. I've got to make sure that I book and get my place in at a restaurant before I actually go.
Look at this
Even Kmart.
I know.
Kmart, you have to book now apparently to enter the store.
Oh, so. I just entered. Like I actually went to Kmart yesterday. And no, but I was welcome to. I didn't even have to go.
There was no line?
Hardly. No, this was at Chadstone. So
wow.
I don't know if that makes a difference. But I was just saying it's interesting that we have to like plan for this freedom to exercise our freedom.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
Can we just be free? Or?
Apparently not.
It's conditional freedom, guys.
Exactly right. I did the same as well. I went to the mall at High Point and with a couple of friends, and we went. I know, right? We went and got food, but we went and sat outside to eat it because the mall was so packed. And we still had to like social distance and whatnot. So it was just it was a bit strange. The conditional freedom.
Conditional freedom.
It's been a very transitional week. This week's been a bit of a weird one, but hopefully we'll get used to it and things will start to get normal, hopefully. Let's hope. So on today's show, I'm super, super excited. We are going to be chatting about cultural appropriation, which is a topic that I'm super passionate about. I know it's a topic that both of you ladies are super passionate about as well. And I feel like we'll be able to give a lot of our own experiences and our own perspectives on the topic. So for those at home, just to give a little bit of a background as to what cultural appropriation actually is. So it's basically the adoption of an element or elements of a particular culture. And this can be controversial, particularly when people of a dominant culture are appropriating a culture that is disadvantaged or minoritized in a particular way. So ladies, how would you describe cultural appropriation? And what does cultural appropriation kind of look like within your particular ethnic and racial groups? Lydia, do you want to go first?
I'm actually thinking because what I understand is that although there is a sort of objective way of looking at this topic, in many ways it's also subjective because it comes down to people have different views and opinions in comforts and discomforts when it comes to this topic of cultural appropriation. And I'm kind of like that. I'm not like the all the way no, like how dare you braid your hair if you're not black sort of person. But I am definitely like, do you really understand like what you're doing, what you're wearing, and the history of it? Because I think it was only until I looked into the whole braiding thing some years ago, I watched this documentary and I realized like, okay, now I really understand why some black people really have reservations about other people wearing like their hairstyles. It's for reasons such as I was, fired from my job or threatened for my job if I went in like this, which is the way I'm dressed now with braids, or you know, a lot of that was a potential income stream for so many Black women, but they weren't even able to exercise that because it wasn't accepted in society. And then you have famous people at the time. I wish I remembered names. There was this one lady, she was kind of like, she was a huge model at the time. She wore braids. I think this was in the 70s. Mind you, this is when it was completely rejected in society. And she made it really popular. From that point onwards, you had people like opening salons, like white people opening salons, doing this hairstyle. It became accepted in society. And it was kind of like insulting because, you know, we have genuine people who have used this hairstyle for years as protective hairstyles that couldn't keep jobs, couldn't just be free and accepted in society. And now you have, it's just an insult. And I think that depending on where you go, if someone has really kind of had the bad end of that stick, I think it'd be a really hard pill for them to swallow, to kind of just watch someone doing that. For me personally, having been raised here in Australia and like not really experiencing that, but appreciating that for Black people, I'm like, it's a tricky one. Because if you understand what you're doing and you are embracing, because I think the issue with cultural appropriation ultimately is that there's such a fine line between embracing one's culture and sort of exploiting it because you're gaining something from it. I don't know, Adim, I think.
I was just going to jump in and say, for me, appropriation is, you know, when it's done at a particular culture or in a particular culture and it's outcasted or seen as ugly, you know, like having full lips, you know, or a big behind, or braids. And then when it's used by a different culture and it's, you know, cheered on and accepted, that's when it becomes appropriation and not appreciation. Appreciation for me would be people doing the same thing all together. You know what I mean? If it's tanning and it's across the board, cool. But yeah, it's just like when one particular group that comes up with this culture or whatever is seen or rejected. And then it's not rejected by a different culture or the dominant culture. That's when it becomes insulting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what both of you are saying in terms of that kind of double standard where there's a minority group that get penalized for embracing their culture, having their cultural hair or cultural dress, whereas the dominant group are kind of praised for that exact thing. I think that that is kind of where it stings in terms of when people are appropriating your culture, but also the element of, you know, really understanding what you're adopting, you know, people from other cultures taking bits of other people's cultures and understanding, do I actually know the cultural significance of what I'm wearing, of this particular hair, of this particular headdress, of this particular, you know, accessory? Do I actually know the significance that this has for this community or for this culture? So I think that understanding that history and that knowledge is definitely an aspect of it as well. And I think that it's important, particularly, you know, because in a country like Australia, there are so many different cultures and diverse cultures that people are going to have, you know, cultural exchange in some way. But I guess cultural exchange is where you are kind of not exploiting and you're giving credit and royalties to that culture, you're understanding the actual culture and the significance of what you're wearing and partaking in. So I think that there is a big difference between appreciating a culture and I guess, appropriating it in that way.
And to add to that sting factor that we're talking about, not only is it a person being able to be praised for, you know, doing something of this culture, it's also like making money off it. That's really where the issue really is as well. It's like Kim Kardashian and her family. Don't mean to call them.
Hey, let's keep that for the next segment. There's so much to talk about. We're already like killing all of the topics straight away.
Okay, this topic goes, you know, but just prefacing for what we'll be talking about next segment. You know, we have certain people in society who have truly made money, who have made money off other people's cultures, while other people have even struggled with a bare minimum, which is like, can I just go to school like this? Because I used to have issues, like even going to school. I used to feel unprofessional and like just not proper, you know.
If you Google professional and unprofessional hairstyles, if you Google unprofessional hairstyles, it's all Black people, if you haven't noticed.
Wow.
On Google, it's Black people with dreadlocks with actually clean cut hair, with braids, with stuff like that still look really neat. Under Google, it's what's unprofessional, and then you put professional, it's all like white guys and girls.
Yeah.
And this is
like,
why
what
the
the hell
problem exists, right? This
Exactly.
is why the problem exists, is because there's still inequalities. There's still things that are, had this all been resolved and it was actually, you know, anyone wear whatever you want to wear, you're all accepted. These issues around cultural appropriation really wouldn't exist.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll
appropriators get offended, you know what I mean, when we start talking about it, but it's like, you can't be offended when we have to live our whole lives offended, or you know what I mean, on the defense, because of our normal culture. I had blonde braids in high school, and I literally did not get school captain or house captain because of it. They tried to suspend me.
No
I went
way.
to a Catholic school. Yeah, I went to a Catholic school, and I fought it, and I said, but miss, my principal, I'm like, you're blonde. Blonde is a natural hair color. So what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say something about my skin, or is it about my hair? Because blonde is a natural hair color.
Two things together.
Oh my
you know what I mean? I'm like, because Catholic schools are supposed to have natural hair color. So I'm like, blonde, brunette, or black. Okay, I'm blonde. What's up?
Yeah.
And you know what, miss? I'm blonde right now. So what's up?
Right.
And I wore it till it was like falling apart, just to prove a point, because you know what I mean? I told them, so many girls, so many white girls who changed their hair color from blonde to brunette or to black or to, you know, even reddy. Like, if you can change, like if you force them to change it back to their original hair color, if that's what we're trying to get at, then you can suspend me and I can change my hair back. If it was blue or green, suspend me. But it's not like that. I wore it for like 3 months till it was like falling apart. You know, walking around like that. They did not like it. They did not suspend me, because I'm like, are you trying to say something else? Because right now our hair color is the same. So I don't understand what's going on.
Wow, that is crazy. If you are just tuning in, you're listening to Soul Dive with Roshani, AD, and Lydia on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live. So ladies, I guess one thing that I want to ask is, where do you as BIPOC women draw the line when it comes to appreciation and appropriation of your particular culture?
I think I appreciate people who actually immerse themselves in the culture, like friends who hang out, you know, with people of different cultures, who really, you can tell when they appreciate something because they've been around it, not because they saw it on TV and said, you know, I want to look like Kim Kardashian, not because I saw, you know, my African friend who I've been hanging out with so much and I really appreciate their culture, and, you know, I just fell in love with it, so therefore I want to give it a go to and have some braids, or, you know, learn how to twerk or whatever. But, you know, when you start grabbing these pieces of culture from someone or a place that isn't cultural and then start using it for yourself, that's where I would draw the line.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like, it's good that you've asked us individually, because I think everyone draws a line differently. And it's based off their experiences once again. And I think sometimes what's tough for me is, like, I want to be mindful of the way that the collective feels. But I have to say that on the spectrum, I'm probably one who's a bit more relaxed when it comes to someone else embracing. There has to be, I have to feel subjectively that they are embracing the culture. But and I think that's partly because I've immersed myself in so many cultures, and I know that there isn't a sincerity to that. So like AD said, if I believe that someone's sincerely immersing themselves in the culture, then, you know, I'm going to embrace it with them. Like, for example, I went to Thailand with my really, really close friend at the time, who I went to high school with. She's Vietnamese, but, you know, she spent years around me, my family, my friends, all of that. And then we get to Thailand, years into our friendship. I'm getting my hair braided, and she ended up getting like cornrows up here, and then just like had the rest of her hair out. I fully supported that. I'm like, do it, you know? And I think there is a difference. Like, are you going to some random Caucasian woman to do your hair for that festival that's coming up that, you know, will have predominant, like, it's kind of just like, it's like, it seems obvious subjectively, but then it's like, we all have different standards, so it's hard. And that's why we come back to, are you truly embracing the culture, or are you just benefiting from it? Are you benefiting from it?
Definitely. I think that you touched on a really good point there, Lydia, of that genuineness of embracing and immersing yourself in the culture. And I think that if somebody is kind of just doing it as a one-off thing and they don't really care, and kind of understanding the difference between somebody who actually does care and does immerse themselves in that culture. So I definitely think for me, it's when people do understand the culture and when they are taking the effort to not just take that one particular aesthetic part of the culture, but trying to understand the culture as a whole. Definitely, if you're taking a part of the culture, but you're continuing to be prejudiced against the people of that culture, I definitely do think that there's a huge, huge problem there. I also think as well, as you were saying, about your friend and you kind of know that person, there is an element to that as well. I feel like if you're being invited or given permission, to kind of take part in that. For example, if you're going to say like a Hindu wedding, you're getting an invite there and people there are going to be dressed in a particular way, and they're going to be dressed with like pottus and bindis and saris, and you're getting invited into that space. So it's okay if you do kind of wear that dress in that particular space. So I think that, when you are being invited, that's one thing as well. But I also think if you're putting anything on your body, you should kind of Google, Google's free, like, just Google, like, what does this mean? What does a bindi mean? That there is cultural significance behind that. So I think that, there's a difference between someone dressing up for a Hindu wedding because they've been invited to that space versus somebody wearing henna and like, a bindi to like a music festival or something.
Music festival.
Yeah,
I was
like
going to
there's
ask
a huge
Roshani,
difference.
is there any? Yeah, I was going to ask Roshani because she's asking us all the questions. Is there any cultural appropriations from your specific culture that you've seen being practiced around?
Yeah, so I definitely think, the sari, the kind of like Sri Lankan and Indian kind of dress is one thing that I know a lot of people, and I've seen a lot of like white people or people from other cultures just wear saris as just a thing. They might go to India on a holiday and then just really fall in love with the culture, or go to Sri Lanka and fall in love with the culture. And I think that, whilst I know that some people just really love the culture, it's about understanding what is behind that. Yeah. And I think that it is also the thing of like, for example, wearing a pottu or a bindi on your forehead. People from South Asian backgrounds, particularly in Western spaces, continually are criticized and discriminated because of that. And the thing is, it's like when a white person's walking around with that on because they just think it's really cute.
Cool.
Right. It stings because it's like, like me as a brown person, when I'm wearing that or when I'm, partaking in that because that's my actual culture, if I'm going to get penalized for it, if I'm going to get discriminated for it, why does somebody else get to wear that around and it be cool? So I think that, those two things are definitely things that are prominent in my particular culture. But I guess there's a weird thing though, because I would say, and I don't know if it's just in my experience with the people around me or like the elder generation around me, but do you feel that there's a difference with say migrant children versus migrant parents in the line of appreciation and appropriation, in terms of like parents being a lot more lenient and really not having too much of a problem with people immersing themselves
100%.
in the culture? AD?
I don't think the older generation really immerses themselves as much in cultural appropriation as much as the younger generation does now. Like we are more fluid, we're more flexible. So we have seen a lot of people starting to enjoy a lot of the cultural aspects of different cultures. Whether sorry, go on, Lydia.
I still think they're shaking off or haven't yet fully understood certain things that our generation are understanding about our social justice issues. So for example, I know that my mom, she projects a lot of what has kind of been instilled into her mind over the years, which is that straight hair is professional. Like I'll often be going to a job interview. I remember I went to my job interview a year and a half ago and I wanted to just go with cornrows, which was my natural hair. And she was like, oh no, like she was shocked. She's like, put the weave on, like, look professional. And I'm like, I literally was like, oh, it's like frustrating because this is your mom and she doesn't mean that at all. But I'm just like, Mom, I'm going like this.
Conditioning. It's conditioning.
Yes. Yeah. And that assimilation. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I think with our parents, they've been conditioned, but then you combine that with the fact that a lot of them have come here to resettle and just be comfortable. So taking on these extra, like we're talking about, you know, a subset of like racism, cultural appropriation. They don't have time. Like they don't actually don't have
They've got
time.
different priorities. They're thinking about their health and safety and the health and safety and well-being of their children.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, if you know, putting on a wig is gonna keep everybody happy, then we'll do it. You know what I mean? We don't want to stir up any conversations.
And I think they would appreciate if we had this conversation. Oh, it's a thing. Sometimes you need to put a name to something that you understand exists. But for now, I would say a lot of them don't really understand that this is an issue. For those reasons. Yeah.
Absolutely. We are going to head to a quick break. More after this. You're listening to Soul Dive with Roshani, AD and Lydia on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live. Welcome back to Soul Dive with Roshani, AD and Lydia. You are on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live. So before the break, we were chatting all things cultural appropriation. We were discussing the difference between appropriation and appreciation. And we were also touching on, I guess, the generational differences when it comes to appropriation. And ladies, you all brought up some really good points. I guess to add to that, I think that, you know, when we talk about migrant parents having different experiences and maybe a different threshold as to what they see as appropriation and appreciation, I guess it kind of does come down to the experiences of, you know, us as migrant children growing up in a particular country where our cultures were not dominant. So we've had experiences where our cultures have been scrutinized and discriminated in particular ways, whereas they would have grown up quite differently, obviously not in a Western kind of culture where those contact zones or cultural contacts would have happened. So, you know, like for me, like I've had the experience of like people saying that I had a smelly lunch because like I had curry for lunch, or, you know, people saying certain things about, you know, like as I was mentioning before, like potus or like, you know, kind of accessories in particular ways. So I think that there are certain things that I'm sensitive to as a migrant child that my mum or my dad wouldn't see necessarily as a bad thing. Like if I saw someone walking around with like a bindi on their head and they weren't part of the culture, and I knew that they were kind of just playing into the aesthetics of that particular culture, that, you know, would kind of you know, hurt me, I guess, and I guess I'd be quite sensitive to that, whereas my parents think that it's someone just appreciating their culture. But I guess that the experiences that we've gone through as migrant children, and also the knowledge of knowing that maybe people are walking around without actually understanding the culture, I think that that is something that plays on my mind, I guess, as a migrant child compared to them. And as AD was saying, different priorities, you know, for them, it's just about that security and that safety, and you know, people liking their culture and partaking their culture to them is like a compliment almost. Whereas I guess that there's more of a line and more of a gray area for me anyway when it comes to that.
I was just
Lydia,
going to say that like what really gives this whole topic weight is really understanding how people suffered at the hands of not being able to express themselves the way they knew how, and how other cultures really profited from doing that. And I think like when just on the surface, it's a conversation that will really come down to like personal discomforts and comforts. If we're just talking on a level of how does it make you feel if someone's wearing this, but really when I understood timelines of when these things were just blatantly unaccepted, and then when it became popular and people were making money, it's just like, oh, it was a huge slap in the face. And I think that even though today you can wear braids to work, or you can wear braids anywhere, I think there's still little pockets of that, like that profiting thing. And I don't know if you guys did you see what happened with what's that singer, Adele? Did you see her at the Jamaican festival?
Yes.
With the Bantu knots, and she was wearing the Jamaican outfit. See, that was a huge divide on the internet as to
Why
whether
wore Bantu knots right now? Everyone's gonna be like, what the hell? I mean, even this is a big deal.
no, but you know,
Right.
a lot of people were kind of saying she was embracing it because she was just purely at a festival. She was there as an attendee, and she wasn't gaining anything. She was literally just dancing in that environment, embracing it. So, but then there are some who are just like, nah.
She's dating a black man right now, so she's really feeling the culture.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay. What are your opinions on that? Right. What would you say, like particularly with the Adele situation? Would you say that that's appropriation or appreciation?
Oh, you know, it's so crazy because it's not that dating someone black gives you a green light, but it's like dating someone black gives you a green light. I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
And it was a one-day thing. I think it's the fact that she's famous and the pictures went around and it's been around for so long that it looks like she's been doing this every day, but it was a one-day event. So I guess when you just put that into perspective, or in perspective for me actually, because I was just like, appropriation, but then I'm like, it was a festival. It's a Jamaican festival. She immersed herself in the culture and we should appreciate it.
And apparently she's from that area or something like that as well, so she's literally been around it, sort of thing. That's why my thing is like your proximity to that culture. What does your proximity look like to that culture? How long has that been the case for? It's hard to judge intention, and I truly believe that this conversation comes down to intention, because a lot of the work has been done. There's irreversible I guess aspects to this issue, but then in the sense that we're allowed to, you know, it's kind of done. So I think it's hard, like really everyone's so different on this conversation, and it's really just about managing what you have around you.
We don't know who's friend, you know what I mean? We don't know who's been around people for so long that they feel that comfortable, you know what I mean? An outsider would look in and be like, what the hell are you doing? But we don't know what the experiences are until we kind of
know them.
I guess
exactly right. It's what makes it hard.
And I guess like it does go back to that immersion, and you might not know the level of immersion that person has kind of or done in relation to that culture, but I guess also intent, where, you know, there may be some person who doesn't intend to appropriate, but it might be that they are. And so I think that it's really important with anything to kind of be open, you know, if somebody does feel uncomfortable, because it is sometimes a subjective thing, just to be open to that, but just not get defensive about it, because at the end of the day, that is somebody else's culture, and so there is a whole history behind that, and a whole history for that particular person bringing it up as well, that may be, you know, why they're bringing up the fact that they are feeling uncomfortable.
You have to
in
be
terms of like
to be met with some resistance, potentially, like depending on where you are, and like you just have to be ready for what comes with this issue as an individual. But
if you're tuning in, you're listening to Soul Dive with Roshani, Lydia and AD on Live FM's at BRIMBANK Live. I know that, you know, Halloween, it's not something that I particularly celebrate, but it is a time where I guess this conversation gets brought up quite a lot, cultural dress, and playing a particular character. You know, there are people that will dress up, you know, as a Native American and wear like a headdress, or, you know, like a kind of like war bonnet. There are people that kind of dress up as a particular culture and use that as a character. What are your opinions on using, I guess, a culture to play a character, or seeing culture as a costume? AD?
I think costumes, Halloween, I mean, Halloween's a one-day thing, cool. But there are universal costumes, and then there are cultural costumes. Like, I wouldn't wear a sari for Halloween, you know what I mean? I dress up as a witch, you know what I mean? Or as a vampire.
Right.
There's a difference. But oftentimes, like, you know, Native Indians have been appropriated really inappropriately. And nobody seems to care. Like people kick up a stink and stuff, but then they're like, oh, just settle down. It's just a headdress. But and then there's the extreme end where people have done blackface, you know, and some of them try to make it fetch, but I think we fought hard against that and said no, that's a bit far. So I don't believe in culture as a costume. There are other costumes, like get creative.
Absolutely. I feel like there are hundreds and thousands of costumes out there. Like if you're really struggling for costume ideas, that you need to appropriate a culture and wear a culture as a costume, like you need to get more ideas.
I think it's particularly weird to actually wear a culture as a costume. I think that's a bit weird because it's like I'm stepping into this character, this alter ego, this thing that I can detach from, you know, whenever I want to. It's not even I'm embracing it. It could be to be fair, but it's also just very much like it's a costume, and already with the costume comes that sort of energy of, you know, it's not that serious. But I think ultimately people are screaming, they're shouting loud through this issue of cultural appropriation. People are saying there's a bigger issue at hand, people. It's racism, and all of these issues really flow from it, you know, the injustices from racism. Like now we see all these other issues that have, and so it's like really people are trying to point back to the main issue through this one. Personally speaking, I would not care one bit if people embrace each other's cultures. If we lived in an equal world, I think that would be a really beautiful thing, because it wouldn't come with anything, you know. It's simply us literally embracing everyone's cultures. But I think because of how complex our world is and the injustices that exist within it, these issues are genuine issues. So
it highlights, you know, the dominant culture dictating what is appropriate or what is inappropriate. You know what I mean? Like if we started going around and saying we want to have really, I don't know, thin lips all of a sudden, and everyone's chopping off their bums because big bums were an issue, you know? They'd be like, why are you know what I mean, doing that? But if once it's the other way around, all of a sudden it's fine. It's not a big deal. Like, why are you kicking up a stink? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, the issue is like you're trying to. What people will say on this topic of cultural appropriation is, you're trying to be like me, but you don't want to actually. You. It's not even you don't want to. You definitely don't want to, and you just won't have the experiences of me. So it's like you get to step into the fantasy, but I'm living a really like a harsh reality within this skin suit. And so I think it's that, and some people just really don't even understand that at the core, and I think that isn't enough for the cultured person in that instance to just say, like, I can't appreciate this.
It is that thing of you know, people using that as, you know, something that they play into maybe for one day to dress up, or you know, like as makeup even, which I know we're going to talk about after a quick break. But basically it's kind of like them being able to remove themselves at the end of the day, where they're
in and out,
opt in and opt out. And there are people living that experience every day. They can't opt out of the fact that they're Black, or they can't opt out of, you know, from the fact that they are from that particular culture and experience discrimination in particular ways. So I think that definitely it's that that understanding of the fact that, you know, somebody's lived experience is not something that you can just play around with. It's not a costume. It's not something that is just a trend. Like that's someone's lived experience and lived culture. So I think that is, definitely something that people need to keep in mind when, I guess, trying to appreciate a culture, kind of understanding that kind of line. In terms of like actual, say, you know, dressing up for Muck-Up Day or for Halloween, if you're playing a character and that character's from a particular culture, do you ladies think that's okay? In terms of like, say if someone wants to dress up as Mulan or like Aladdin, obviously those characters have particular cultures which they originate from, and the costumes have elements of that culture. Do we feel that is something that is okay, I guess?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's fine. Like little kids dressing up as Aladdin or Mulan is nice, and it looks like they admire these characters, you know what I mean? It's not like they went onto Google and all of a sudden they like this culture and then they're going to dress up in it. It's more of a character type thing as opposed to culture. And I think it's actually really nice seeing different people dressing for different characters.
I think that definitely. And I think that one thing that I have always said is, you know, it's fine if you're out here wanting to dress up as Aladdin, but I think that the line that you cross is if you decide that you want to paint, you know,
that's
brown
what
face.
I'm saying. No,
like you can have the costume and
you
can kind of play that character, obviously, because it is an actual character. But if you're out here changing your particular skin tone or your appearance, you're trying to slant your eyes to be Mulan, I think that is just that is a line that you are crossing. But I definitely think the actual costume of it, and because that costume is linked to a character, I think that is fine. But I think that people, and there are people, I mean, that actually do cross this line thinking it's okay because they think they're just trying to be Aladdin, or trying to be Princess Jasmine, or trying to be like Mulan. And so I think that it's definitely that's a line that,
like, putting on an accent. What do you guys think about that?
Oh God, no. See, I think all of these things also highlight ignorance too, because you realize that there are people in society who are doing these things with not understanding at all what the issues are, and that's an issue in itself. But it's just again, that rubs in the issue, that makes the issue more obvious to the person that's feeling it. So I don't know, it's just, for me, I'm just kind of like, I haven't taken a strong stance on this in the sense in terms of the enforcement of it, because it's just a bit, I don't know.
It is, I guess, a really tough one. We're going to head to a quick break. More after this. You're listening to Soul Dive with Roshani, Lydia and AD on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live.
Live on Live FM.
Welcome back to Soul Dive. You're here with Roshani, Lydia and AD on Live FM's BRIMBANK Live. We have spoken all things cultural appropriation. We've discussed, I guess, the impacts of cultural appropriation, the difference between cultural appropriation and appreciation. And now we are going to break down some myths about cultural appropriation. So the first myth, ladies. By appropriating cultural dress, people are actually helping to platform cultures. What do we think of this one?
I'll just that's my initial response.
All right.
A giggle. I hope they caught that. I'm not like, no, we don't. We need your help with the other fight. Look, we don't need like you to promote our braids. We need you to promote the importance of an equal society and what that looks like. So that's just me. Boom, right there. AD.
I agree. That's not what we asked for. We asked for help in the battle of racism. We asked for help in the battle of equality, not promoting our hairstyles for your own benefits. Thing.
Definitely.
And once we're all equal, like we can walk into the workplace with 2 cornrows and not be looked at funny, then we can talk. But that unequal give and take of the same culture or of our culture, no.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to add to that, I know a lot of people say, you know, if only people loved Black people the way that they love Black culture. And I think that is very important. Like, definitely there's a bigger fight to fight here. And it, maybe jump on that instead of jumping on wearing cornrows, thinking that you're spreading diversity and helping out the culture. So the next one, this gets thrown around a lot, the statement of, I've asked someone from the culture that's being appropriated and they said that it was okay, so it's okay.
Ooh.
What do we think of this one?
AD just, because...
I mean, the thing is, like, within our own communities, and we spoke about colorism and whatever, there's also, you know, that, I don't know what the word is, but the hate factor within our own selves. That conditioning, that shame factor, that idea that we have to conform and we have to say yes. Like, for you to go against that, it's like you fighting or being argumentative or disruptive. So a lot of people just say it's okay because that's what they think is the right thing to say, and that they'll be seen as negative Nancy or negative energy, or you know what I mean? Like they get gaslit into thinking that to say, no, I'd like to keep my own culture, or I'd like to keep my own whatever it is, my hairstyle or whatever it is. It's you going backwards and not fighting the fight, you know what I mean? It's not like they're trying to help you with something, but it's like, no. I can give you a whole long list of things you can help me with. Like,
It just reminds me of, sorry, AD, what was that? I'm just thinking with, to that, it's just kind of, it's tough because it's like, I think on one hand, AD highlighted the more common one, but I think on another hand, there are a bunch of Black people or other cultures that, you know, kind of don't actually care. And that could also stem from a place of ignorance themselves. And that exists. Or it could just be like, they don't care. And they are more than happy for their friend to experience this thing. And that's why I said, it's not a black and white argument. And I think it's, in the case that someone's doing it just to not be disruptive, I think that's very problematic, because that happens in society. We feel pushed to
and shut up.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to know that they don't really speak for everybody either. I think that's important to understand. Maybe they're fine with it, but you need to understand that there's a group of people out there that may not be fine with it.
That's why I said to my friend when she got the braids done, I'm fine with this, but you have to be willing or ready to be met with some resistance. And that could be a stare, that could be whatever it is, but because ultimately we can't speak for everyone in society. And just as much as I'm not comfortable with it, I can't necessarily say that that's the case for everyone in society and the other way around. So it's at your own expense, people. Like that's
absolutely.
what it is. You just got to be ready.
And last quick one, we're going to do a quick whip around for this. Black girls wearing blonde wigs or silky textured hair is appropriation. So reverse appropriation being a thing.
Straight up conditioning. I mean, you told us we have to have straight hair to fit in, and now we have straight hair to fit in. It's a problem.
Absolutely.
It's true. That's the only way we were accepted as being or presenting professionally in certain environments. I remember that was the case so long. I had the ugliest hairstyles in the name of I need to have a straight hairstyle. Do you remember, AD? Like we used to have the like you'd straighten your fronts and then you'd have the clip-in extensions because the textures were so different. It was like a boof, and then you have
like the emo hairstyle, but with that, not our choice though of emo.
I didn't know what I was doing.
I feel like definitely there's a difference. Assimilating to a dominant culture is not appropriation. It's basically just trying to get by, and you're kind of going by the standards that people are forcing you to go by.
That's exactly it. It's not appropriation. It's actually like, you know, I have to do this to survive.
Right.
What about I wrote here as well, like skin bleaching or tanning? Would that be appropriation?
I feel a bit of a way about people tanning, particularly when it's like blackfishing. You know, you're going way
fishing. That's an interesting concept.
So it's when people kind of try to emulate, I guess, a darker complexion through tanning, but at the end of the day they can take it off and they don't have to have the lived experiences of a person of color or a black person. So I have, I guess, a problem with that, or I see that as a little controversial.
See, I don't mind this one as much, only because the natural consequence of spending time in the sun for many, and for white people too, is a tan. So I'm like, okay, you just want to fast track the process of what for you might happen. Like we have Mediterranean people, Italians, Greek people who tan very like strongly. So I'm like, to the extent that you're kind of trying to imitate what you could have naturally, and maybe a little bit more, then okay, cool. But you know, it's very obvious when someone's just trying to tan to look black, really. Look, you know, so I think. And then for the skin whitening, that one hurts me as a black person. It actually hurts me to see other black people lighten their skin. And that's a whole nother topic, really. But I don't like it. I don't like seeing it because
it's not just black people, is it? It's
Sorry, it's not. It's Asians. It's it's Southeast Asians. It's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, after this quick break, we'll be shifting our attention away from today's topic and towards an exciting new project that's happening in Brimbank. Stay tuned. You're listening to Soul Dive on Live FM's Brimbank Live. Welcome back to Soul Dive. You're here with Roshani, AD, and Lydia on Live FM's Brimbank Live. We are now joined by Jennifer, who is going to chat to us about riding the COVID-19 wave in Brimbank event. Jennifer, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you ladies. I've met you before briefly. AD, I don't think I've met you before, but
I'm one of the gals.
But I've been checking out your show like on the Live FM, and I've been following your Instagram as well.
Oh, nice.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
I've seen all the faces.
There you go. Oh, wow.
Wow, that's so cool. Jennifer, tell us about riding the COVID-19 wave in Brimbank and what the inspiration behind the project is.
Yeah, so we sort of took a little bit of inspiration, I think, pinched from a few other library services that are doing this stuff. The State Library is sort of doing it from a bit of a historical perspective. So they've been asking people to, you know, like collect newspaper articles, like things that they see out and about, like to do a bit of a time capsule of what the pandemic was like. So sort of wanted to do something similar, but on a local scale. So just for Brimbank. And not so much just like newspaper clippings and stuff, but actual stories of, you know, what people's experiences were like during the pandemic, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like, you know, what life was like during this time living in Brimbank. So yeah, I think it's just an opportunity for people to tell their stories. And then this will sort of be something that we can look back on, you know, in 20 years time and think, what the hell? So we're thinking we're just at the moment sort of collating all the submissions from people. So they can be images, writing pieces, videos, a bit of everything. So depending on how much we get, we were thinking we'll do a virtual exhibition, then maybe a physical exhibition later on down the track, whatever, given the restrictions are at the time. We'd also like to do a physical publication, so collect the images and stories into a book and get it published. So there's a few ideas, but yeah, we'll just have to sort of gauge what the submission level is at the time to see what's the best option to sort of go with. But yeah, really good things so far. So
absolutely, that's really exciting, and I think it is really important to kind of capture these moments because, as you said, we're going to look back in 20 years, and it is such an experience. We lived through a pandemic, so I think that is really, really cool. Speaking of submissions, how do we submit?
So if you visit the Brimbank Library's website, so just visit www.brimbanklibraries.vic.gov.au. And they're riding the COVID wave in Brimbank. There's like a banner that scrolls on the front page, and it'll be on the banner, or you can search it from the website. If you just type in riding the COVID-19 wave in Brimbank, the submission page will come up. Or if you really can't find it, like you're a bit lost on the website, just call one of the libraries and we can navigate you, or just send you the direct link to your email or something to make it.
Absolutely.
That's a bit of a headache. Setup was, we didn't have the right JPEG format for the submissions. So people and like it wouldn't accept JPEGs. So for the first weeks, everything was bouncing back for people, and I think it sort of deterred people, but we've all the technical glitches out. It's good to go now. So
well, because people need an outlet to, you know, just submit how they're feeling and things like that, whether in art form or
exactly. Different styles of expression are what's open to people. So that's really cool. I was thinking about the file. I've only recently learnt about all of that file stuff. I'm like a PNG.
What's that thing?
There's so many options.
I know. Well, I said it accepted JPGs, but not JPEGs, and I thought they were anyway.
What is this?
It's really different. And one works, one doesn't work. So
I feel that.
Yeah.
But that is really exciting though. And yeah, hopefully people do kind of submit and kind of put in what has happened to them and kind of contribute to this amazing project. And yeah, for listeners, check out the website and submit to your submissions and contact the library if you are having any difficulties with that. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming on and speaking about this exciting new opportunity that's happening locally in Brimbank. We are really excited, I guess, to see the finished product of
definitely.
it.
I'm feeling like I want to submit something.
Me too.
Right?
Honestly, it can be anything. Like, we've had colleagues at work have been submitting their work from home pictures with their cats.
Submit a mandala.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, AD's got something ready to go.
Well, this is from BRIMBANK mentoring, but I made some kids draw a mandala and then write some words that mean something to them.
That's really nice.
Thank you. I only had highlighters on hand, so I did the whole thing.
Thank you.
All right, AD, I'm expecting to see that in the submission.
JPG.
Okay. Get it right, AD.
Even like acts of kindness and stuff that you experienced throughout the pandemic as well. Colleagues, his neighbor has been baking nonstop and just leaving cookies on all of each other's doorsteps, which I wish I had that neighbor. I don't know. But all that sort of nice stuff as well. So, but yeah, we're like looking for a whole range of things. Like I said, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like if you're really sad and depressed, like we want to get those stories too, like a bit of everything. So, and we want from kids, adults, young people, like a whole range of people. So, get your mum and dads, get your brothers.
And the full spectrum is important, just so it represents truly this period and what it's been for everyone.
Definitely.
So awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jennifer. We're going to head to a quick break and we'll wrap up our show. You're listening to Soul Dive on Live FM's at Brimbank Live.
With thanks to the City of Brimbank across our neighbourhood and the world, Soul Dive with AD, Roshani and Lydia on Brimbank Live on Live FM.